The return of the river. The golden sun rose slowly over the village of Nyota, but this time, it shimmered with something new, hope. A soft breeze danced through the trees, carrying the cool scent of fresh water. Birds chirped louder than usual, monkeys leapt from tree to tree in joy, and a gentle rumbling sound filled the morning air. Children rubbed their sleepy eyes and stepped outside. Farmers paused as they walked toward the dry fields. Even the village elders, who usually woke early and moved slowly, hurried to the edge of the village, hearts pounding with curiosity. And there it was. MTO Mzuri had returned. The river, once dry and cracked like broken glass, now flowed strong and blue again. It sparkled in the sunlight, tumbling over smooth stones and rushing past tree roots with a playful laugh. The whole village gasped. The river, someone shouted. It's back. One by one, everyone ran down to the banks, children first, then mothers, fathers, the chief, and even old grandmother Kira, who hadn't left her hut in weeks. Some dipped their toes in the cool water. Others scooped it into their hands and let it run through their fingers as if to make sure it was real. Many simply stood in silence, eyes wide, tears shining. Then came a cheer, louder than drums, louder than thunder. Max! Max! He's the one who brought it back. The crowd turned. There, standing on a smooth rock at the edge of the river, was Max. His fur was damp, his paws muddy, and there was a scratch on his ear, but he looked proud, tall, and beaming with joy. He wagged his tail. And the crowd erupted. Children surrounded him, giggling, patting his head, and hugging him tightly. You did it, Max. You saved the village. Tell us everything. Max backed happily and rode on his back as the little ones laughed and played. Even the village chief, who had once told Max he was too small to help, knelt beside him and bowed his head. We were wrong, the chief said. You're not just a little dog. You're a giant, where it truly matters. Max backed again and gave the chief's hand a friendly lick. Grandmother Kara stepped forward, her cane tapping softly on the stones. Her eyes twinkled. I always believed in you, little one, she whispered. She held out a small blue flower from her garden and tucked it gently behind Max's ear. To honor your brave heart. As the village celebrated, music began to rise from the huts. Drums were brought out, flutes were played, and dancers toured through the dust and grass. Pots of stew bubbled over fires, and sweet fruits were shared around. It was the grandest feast Nyota had seen in years. But while everyone danced and laughed, Max quietly padded to the riverbank. He sat beside the flowing water and stared into its gentle waves. His reflection stared back, a small, muddy dog with kind eyes and a heart full of memories. He remembered the rain tree and the glowing drop. He remembered the darkness of Zorak's lair, the roaring serpent, and the way the cave had lit up with water and light. He remembered Leo, the wise lion, and his words, "True courage lives in your heart." Max sighed happily. He didn't need a crown or a medal. He didn't need to be the biggest or the fastest. He had done what he set out to do. He had saved his village. Just then, someone sat down beside him. It was TMU, a young girl from the village with wild cows and the brightest eyes. "Hey, hero," she said with a grin. Max wagged his tail and leaned against her. "I bet the river spirits are smiling right now," TMU whispered. "You gave them back their home. Just like you gave us back ours." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, flat stone. On it, she had drawn Max, standing bravely beside the river, tail high, with a little golden sun above his head. "It's for you," she said, handing it to him. Max took it gently in his mouth and back softly. That night, as stars blanketed the sky, the village gathered once more, this time around the central fire. Torches flickered, casting warm light over happy faces. And at the center, Max lay curled beside the flames, surrounded by love, stories, and songs. The chief stood and raised his hand. "Tonight, we celebrate Max," he declared. "Not because he's the biggest or the loudest, but because he believed in what was right, even when no one else did." He journeyed across the wild lands, faced monsters, and brought back the heart of our home. The villagers clapped and cheered. "And from this day forward," the chief continued, "let it be known that courage is not measured in muscle or roar, but in kindness, in bravery, and in never giving up." The fire crackled. The stars twinkled. And Max. He closed his eyes, his heart full, his dreams peaceful. Because deep down, he knew the truth. He hadn't just brought back the river. He had reminded everyone, big or small, that even the smallest voice can make the biggest difference. A hero's legacy. The village of Nyota had changed. Where once the riverbed had been dry and cracked, now empty Mzuri danced and sparkled under the sun. Green shoots poked through the soil, fruit trees grew heavy with sweetness, and animals of all sizes returned to drink and play. But even more than the land, something else had changed: the people's hearts. They had seen bravery not in muscle or size, but in the quiet courage of one small dog who had dared to face a giant serpent to save his home. And every morning, when the sun rose and the river whispered past the rocks, the village remembered, kindness and bravery can live in the most unexpected places. Especially in Max. Though he never asked for praise or reward, Max became a legend. Children carved little statues of him from wood and painted them with colors made from crushed berries and flower petals. The elders told stories of his journey by the firelight, their voices soft and proud. Once, they would say, "There lived a little dog with a heart bigger than the sun." Max didn't care about legends. He was just happy the river had returned and his village had food and joy again. He spent his days chasing butterflies, napping under mango trees, and helping the younger animals cross the river's edge. Wherever he went, little footsteps followed him, kids eager to hear more about the rain tree, the lion's grove, or the serpent Zorak. One warm afternoon, Max lay under a tamarind tree when a familiar voice whispered behind him. "Found you." It was TMU, the bright-eyed girl who had given him the hand-painted stone. She sat cross-legged beside him and opened a worn leather notebook, its pages filled with drawings. "Guess what?" she said, her eyes shining. We are writing a book. A real one. About your adventure. I'm doing the pictures, and Grandmother Kira is helping with the words. Max's ears perked up. TMU held up a sketch. It showed Max in mid-leap, dodging the snapping jaws of a huge serpent in a dark cave, his eyes blazing with determination. Max barked in delight, tail thumping. I want everyone to know what you did, she said. Not just our village. Other children. Other towns. So that if anyone ever feels too small or too scared to help, they remember you. She leaned her head against his. You changed everything, Max. That evening, the villagers held a special celebration. It wasn't just for the river. It was for the future. The children had organized a parade. They wore masks made of painted leaves, some shaped like lions, others like trees, snakes, and stars. At the very front, a little boy carried a banner that read, Bravery lives in the heart. Max was the honored guest, of course. He trotted proudly down the path beside TMU, his tail high, wearing a crown of sunflowers and a necklace of river stones. Drums beat joyfully. Villagers clapped and sang. Musical note. Big or small, weak or strong. He showed us where the brave belong. With steady paws and lion's might. Max brought back the water's light. Musical note. At the end of the parade, the chief stepped forward, holding a small wooden box. He opened it to reveal a shiny silver medallion with Max's paw print carved into the center. We named this day Max Day, the chief announced. Every year, when the rains return and the river is strong, we will remember the one who made it possible. Everyone cheered. But even with all the joy and laughter, Max felt a strange tug in his heart that night. As he curled up beneath the stars, TMU resting nearby, he looked toward the horizon. The same wind that once carried him to the rain tree now whispered through the leaves again. He knew his journey wasn't truly over. The world was wide and full of places where rivers had dried and forests were silent. Where creatures were afraid and voices went unheard. Maybe, just maybe, he could help them too. The next morning, Max stood at the village gate, the medallion tied gently around his neck. The whole village gathered to see him off. Where are you going? TMU asked softly. Max nuzzled her cheek and barked once, short, sure, and brave. To where he's needed next, Grandmother Kira smiled, placing a small pouch of dried fruit at his paws. That's the way of a true hero. TMU hugged him tight. Come back someday, okay? I'll have more drawings. The chief saluted him. You'll always have a home here. With one last look at the river, the trees, and the faces he loved, Max trotted off into the sunrise, his steps light, his spirit strong, and his heart full of courage. And though he left the village behind, his story traveled faster than he ever could. It spread across valleys and mountains, over rivers and deserts. Children everywhere whispered his name. Did you hear about Max the brave dog? They say he defeated a serpent. He saved an entire village. And somewhere, deep in the forest or atop a faraway hill, a little dog with a sunflower crown and a wagging tail would smile and keep going. Because when you're brave, when you're kind, when you believe you can help, you're never too small to change the world. The end.